Welcome back to another episode of Unpacking Life with the box and the basket, kind of. So today we were talking about some fun experiences we've had as real estate agents. I usually get all the crazy ones, but you've had some pretty interesting ones.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into that, though, please like, share, and subscribe, and we appreciate y'all listening or watching, however you're getting our content.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you guys enjoy it. So, what is your craziest story you've had as a real estate agent?
I'm looking at my notes because now I'm blanking.
Since it is such a dangerous job.
I think the craziest, it wasn't crazy, but it happened most recently, and it was just wild to me.
Uh-huh.
Is that I had a house listed for sale.
Right.
And I had 3 people calling me, lying to me, impersonating other people.
Oh, that Indian family?
Yeah. So I put the house on the market. These are past clients of mine. They had done a great job with their house. They had done upgrades to it. She's really good at decorating, this Mrs. Seller. And it didn't take them a lot to get the house ready. So it was like very neutral. She has really good taste. Like it was a slam dunk. So we looked at the pricing, everything. I priced it correctly. I had pictures done on it professionally. And then I put it on the MLS and, did all the marketing. And we got an offer in like 2 or 3 days. And they got the price that they were asking. So then my seller had told me that his neighbor stopped him outside and was like, hey, how much are you selling your house for? Now, mind you, this neighbor he had not talked to since he moved into this house.
No.
But you know how people are. They're just getting nosy and they're like, now I want to talk to you. So he asked him if they had sold it. And he's like, yeah, it's under contract. Like it's not done yet. But
Right.
And he asked him how much it was selling for. And he's like, well, I just told him because, he can look it up if he looked up the address.
Mm-hmm.
But he said he didn't tell him anything further. So then a few days go by and I get a phone call. And they're like, oh, I'm just interested in this house. And asking me questions that somebody that's looking to buy usually doesn't ask. Like, how long has it been on? I see that it's sold, but how much did it sell for? Like, if it's pending, it's not available anymore. Most people just skip it. Like, they don't care. So I'm like... Unless what?
You're looking to sell your house.
Exactly. And so I'm like, I could smell it from 5 feet away. Or what do you say?
5 feet away? That's not very far.
I smell it from a mile away.
A
mile away. I'm
5
done.
feet away.
I'm canceled after this.
They hit you in the face by that.
Later today, don't tell anybody. I think
real
I have
quick,
early on.
Vanessa, were you about to say early autism?
Early onset dementia.
So Vanessa has this thing where she says metaphors completely wrong. What is it? The Eskimo?
I said somebody was a good seller, and I said she could sell ice. And I meant to say to an Eskimo, but couldn't remember, so I said igloo man.
To an igloo man. And then she pulled the old switch and bait.
I think bait and switch and bait you could do either.
No.
Because sometimes you switch and then you bait somebody.
Switch what?
You switch what you're going to say.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So anyway, nobody gave me an IQ test. I'm probably dumb.
Probably.
That's so rude. I'm highly intelligent. English is not my first language. That's why I don't know some of these things.
I know.
You guys
Earlier
come
you
up
were telling Val, I speeded up the...
Because that's how the kids talk, and sometimes I pick up
That's
their
why they
words.
still talk like that.
Anyway, so
Oh, I'm
I
crying,
know when
dude.
I say I'm cold, I say I'm coldies. Because Roman says coldies, so now I say coldies all the
Your
time.
footies and betties.
It's fine. Just my life is more fun saying words like that.
I know, it keeps me
I
entertained.
meant a mile away. I could smell it from a mile away that this guy was lying.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, are you the seller down the street? He's like, yeah. And so then he confessed and he's like,
Yeah.
why isn't my house selling? I'm like, I'm not your agent. I can't help you. Call your agent and ask them why it's not selling. I could tell you why it wasn't selling. It wasn't in our local system. So
Yeah.
every city has like a MLS, which is a multiple listing service. So all the real estate agents in that area put their houses that they're selling in this system.
Mhm.
While we're in Colorado Springs, it was in Denver. Denver's an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
It was in the Denver MLS. So people here aren't even seeing it unless they're looking on Realtor.com or
Right.
Zillow, which if you're working with an agent, you might not be.
Mhm.
So I was like, I can't help you. If you are no longer working with that agent, then I can help you. But then at that point, I looked up the listing and I could tell that maybe they were being unrealistic. So I call my sellers and I tell them, and they're like, oh, well, he said to us that he's trying to sell his house for the same amount, but the realtor was telling him that's too much. You can't get that.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I have the same floor plan. I can get the same amount of money. In the pictures,
Mhm.
I don't know who wasn't doing, I think the agent wasn't doing their job communicating
yeah.
with the guy to tell them, like, there was toothpaste on the counters, like smeared. There was
In their photos.
in their photos, there was like random stuff laying around. It wasn't cleaned up. It wasn't show ready. It didn't show well. It didn't look good. Nothing. Like, there's a process for a reason. So then somebody else calls me.
Yeah.
And same thing. Oh, about this house. And I'm like, it's pending. Why are you calling?
And they all had Indian accents, right?
Yeah, like
you knew they were.
So, I mean, it was a dead giveaway because my client,
Mhm.
who they're Puerto Rican, they told me that they have these Indian neighbors,
Right.
and then they have a distinct accent. Like, I'm not trying to be mean in any way, but
Yeah.
I could tell, right? Like, so these three people that call me, they're all Indian. I'm like, what are the chances that somebody's trying to buy this house and they all have Indian accents? So somebody calls me and I'm like, I don't know who this is now, but they have an Indian accent again. So it turns out it's their agent.
Yeah. And it's like a family member or something? He's like their cousin or something?
No, I don't think so. He's like, well, what? I just it's like lied first and then asked me to, then I was like, I know who you are. Like, it has something to do with this. Like, but he didn't. Like, he hung up on me. I'm like, don't call me, and then hang up on me. And then the wife called me.
Yeah.
And the wife, she didn't bullshit me for long. She tried to, but at this point, it's my third call. Like, I'm getting irritated.
And it was all like within a couple of days, right?
Yeah, and I try to answer all my phone calls because if somebody's calling me like, hey, you need to help me buy a house, I want to answer.
Yeah.
And now you're making it hard for me to answer the phone nicely. So, that was wild. And she's like, oh, we're going to be calling you once we fire this agent. And they didn't call me, which is good because then I saw them repost it with cell phone pictures, reduced commission. And I'm like, that wouldn't, like, yeah. I don't think we would have been a good match, me and the seller.
No, for sure.
So that was my crazy story. It took me 10 minutes to tell. Now it's your turn.
So I was in law enforcement for like the last 11-ish years. Mm-hmm. And as a cop, I never got shot at. And like I've dealt with people with guns and knives and weapons and all kinds of stuff.
I've been in plenty of fights, but
yeah, nobody's ever shot at me. And then my first appointment that Vanessa sends me to for a listing, I get shot at. And so it's kind of a weird situation, but our appointment was at like 2 p.m. or something. So I pulled up to their house just before 2, like maybe 5-10 minutes early. And they were pulling in at the same time. And Mr. Seller and Mrs. Seller and their baby, like infant baby, they're like out of the car, about to walk in. And so I greet them. And still having my spider senses, obviously I see a gun on this dude's hip. And so I'm like keeping an eye on it, not worried about it. And we go inside the house. His wife and baby go. So you walk into the front door and it's like a split level. So the wife and the baby go downstairs, and then they make a right, like at the first door. And we walk up the stairs, basically right above where she was with the baby. And the husband goes to like his entertainment center. He has like a little safe there. And he takes his gun off his hip. And I'm still watching him, like not being super obvious, but just making sure that nothing crazy is going to happen.
And then it does.
Yeah. And so I hear him take the magazine out, and he racks it, and he throws the magazine back in. And I remember, like, in my head, I was like, it's weird because he like locked it back, and it's weird that he threw the mag in and then racked it forward, like after he took a bullet out of the chamber. And then he went to put it in the safe, and I turned away to like look at the kitchen area, and he's off to my right, and then my ears start ringing, and I was like, did this dude just shoot his damn gun? And I look at him, and he's like turns around, looks at me, and we make eye contact, and I go, the first thing I'm like, what's below us? Because I thought he shot straight down. And he's like totally freaked out. And he's like still holding the gun. So I go, give me the damn gun. And he didn't want to give it to me. So I take it from his hands. I was like, listen, I was a cop. Like, I know how to handle guns. And so finally he lets it go. And
he probably is thinking like, this guy, I just shot at him. He probably thinks it's like,
he didn't directly shoot at me, but
he thinks it's that's war. How I tell it. He probably thinks like, oh, now he's going to shoot back at me. That's probably why he didn't want to give it to you.
And so I take the gun, take the mag out, rack it a few times just to make sure that it's clear. And then I take the magazine separate, like put the gun down. And I'm like trying to get his attention because he's visibly shooken. Yeah. And so I was like, what's below us? And he's like, it's the laundry room. And I was like, I don't know that his wife and kid would go into their laundry room. I go, let's go check. So we walk downstairs, and sure enough, it's their like master bedroom, and then the baby's crib is like right below where we were, up against that back wall. And so the dude has his gun back, and he's like trying to show his wife what he did because
everybody's okay.
Yeah, everybody's fine. And so he's like trying to show the wife what he did. I go, do not pull the damn trigger. And he's like, no, I'm not. I was like, all right. And I'm like looking at the ceiling. There's no like exit hole or nothing. And so finally I was like, all right, you guys are all good. Everybody's fine. We go back upstairs, and I'm like looking around the carpet. And then right next to the entertainment center is like a hole right in the frame. And so we go outside, like searching for an exit hole and like pulling siding back and stuff. And there's like no exit anywhere. So I think the bullet just got lodged into the wood of the frame. Like he just got super lucky. And yeah, I just told him, I was like, hey, listen, you already shot at me, bro. Like you got to use me as your agent.
Well, I think they wanted to at that point.
Yeah. And his wife was like totally freaked out. And he's just kept apologizing the whole time. And it is what it is.
It's really, I think it's my fault because I was always so worried about you when you were out on patrol and working at the prison and everything. I'm like, oh, I had the worst anxiety. Like, oh, somebody's going to call me and he's not going to be okay. And then
I'm hard to kill. That's all you got to worry about.
Knock on wood. Not for me. I can't turn. I'm so sore. And I think God was like, oh, you know what? You kept worrying about him? Bet.
You got what you wanted?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Here you go.
But What?
Even the last few days that you were working, I was like, it's okay. Like, just remember how anxious you were when, like, he's working with you full time. And that you don't have to be that anxious anymore. And I'm like, it was like a reminder, like, you worried all those years for nothing. Yeah. And something can happen at any time. So now I'm just worried all the time.
But yeah, so I text Vanessa. I was like, this dude just shot his gun.
You said ND, and I'm like, what is he saying?
A negligent discharge.
So then I Googled it, and then I freaked out. I'm like, ah! What do you mean?
I was like, this dude just ND'd his gun in the house. She's like, yeah, right. I was like, no, for real. And I sent her a picture of the bullet hole because the dude had to go downstairs and get yelled at by his wife for a little bit. And So I sent her a picture of the bullet. She's
Fun
like, "Are
times.
you kidding me?"
I was dying. And then he just did the appointment and came home. No big deal.
No,
You would have had to pull me out on a stretcher.
nobody's hurt.
Like, you know, in like basketball and soccer when they like graze you.
Oh my god.
And then they're like, oh. I would have been like, I have a pretend bullet hole wound right here.
You're dumb.
I felt like when it passed me, it hurt me. Like it grazed me.
But yeah, so that was the first time I got shot at in a long time.
When did you get shot at? When you were in the military?
Yeah.
You
don't rockets and all kinds of fun stuff.
Tell the stories.
But
I've had other. For me as a woman, I've had like situations where I've shown a guy houses. It was a guy, and I thought he was coming with him and his wife. Mm-hmm. And then I pull up to the house, and only a guy gets out of the car. Yeah. And I'm already like, oh, what am I gonna do? Mm-hmm. So you're already there. You can't just drive off. I mean, I could, but I just like split second, and I get out. And I'm like, where's your wife? Oh, she couldn't make it. Huge dude, probably like 350 pounds. Just like, sometimes, I don't know, women have intuition, right? The whole thing felt bad. I'm like, this is not good. And we're like in an area, 30, 35. Well, like as things are going, yeah, I feel more uncomfortable by the minute. Mm-hmm. And like my gut is like screaming at me at this point. We go in. And I'm like, I just cannot like get into a situation where I can't get out of this house. Yeah. And he's like, well, come down here. Look at the basement. I'm like, nope, I'm going to stay right here. And then I told him like, it just happened that way. Like he looked, I stood at the door. He looked around. And then I'm like, hey, so sorry. Something came up. I can't show you the rest of the houses. Mm-hmm. And then I just called someone else, Larry, when I was working with Scott. I just gave him his information. I was like, look, this is what happened. I feel super uncomfortable. You need to work with this guy. I don't care if you send me a referral fee, nothing. Like, just call this guy and so that he doesn't ever have to call me again. So nothing happened, but like, it's enough to like. You don't want to chance it. I don't know what would have happened had I gone up, you know, because there's like in the beginning, he was like behind me and I'm like, he's just like at any point could just like grab me from the back and choke me and I'm done. Yeah. Or like, what do you call that stuff? Chloroform? Chloroform. Hmm. Like, it's scary. Yeah. You're a guy. It's not that scary for you. It's scary for me. I know. You're going to go in a house with a girl. She's just going to, like, roofie you.
And rape me?
No. So, that. And then I've been in houses where, like, they're like, oh, it's empty. And then you go in, there's somebody there. Yeah. Yeah. Or somebody's sleeping and you don't know until you go in the room and the sheets are moving. I'm like, let's go.
I haven't had anybody in the house. Uh-huh. I had homeless people in a shed in the backyard. Oh, yeah. And the neighbor was like stopping me. He's like, yo. Hey, so last night there were some homeless dudes walking in and out of the backyard. I was like, okay.
That doesn't bother you? No. I would be freaked out. Also, like, when I show old houses, like, in downtown that are like 100 years old. And they have like little, like the basement, you have to duck down. Yeah. And it's just dark. And there's like stone falling. It's like ruins, basically. Oh my God. The ceiling isn't even tall enough that you could stand. And it's just sketchy. You know those
scary basements that you see in the movies where like you have to walk in the backyard and you have to like lift the doors? Yeah. The steps? Uh-huh. Those would probably creep me out a little. Mm-hmm.
I've seen those. You go first. And then usually, like, if it's a husband and wife, I'm like, sir, could you go first, please? Us two, like, we're not going to do much. Please go. Gentlemen first. Yeah. I hate that. I hate creepy houses.
I know. Remember that one Brandon told, or he called you, no? Mm-hmm. So my buddy Brandon, he's a cop as well. Uh-huh. And I think he got called by somebody. So this lady was looking for a rental, and she called the owner of the house that was going to rent it out to her. And the owner was like adamant on her coming alone, and then was like pissed when the lady showed up with her friend or something, or her mom.
Her mom.
Yeah. And the owner was like, I thought you were coming by yourself. And it was a female owner, right?
Yeah.
Or was it a guy?
No, it was a female.
It was a female owner.
A female agent.
Oh. And she was like pissed that this lady showed up with her mom. She's like, I thought you were going to be alone. She's like, well, my mom came with me. I don't know what to tell you. So she was upset about it. And then they go down to the basement and they're like checking out the basement. And I guess there's like a steel door or something. And they go to open the door for some reason. Still want to like
well, because Brandon said the lady stayed upstairs. She didn't go down with them.
Yeah.
So they went down, the mom and the daughter, by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they just like opened the door.
Yeah.
And there's like a recliner with like blood stains on the floor. And the recliner had like
chains,
contraptions
straps,
that
some leather straps
indicated that someone was at some point strapped to the chair.
Yeah.
And they don't run out screaming. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But, and I forget what else happened. But they left.
There was like a blood stain on the floor,
in
right?
front of
on the concrete
and behind a steel door, like heavy. Like it didn't come with the house. Somebody put that door there with a lock.
I have to see it because people make stuff up all the time.
Yeah, but Brandon saw it, didn't he?
No.
Oh.
They just called him to tell him about this house, and then he's like, "Okay."
So then he called me, and he was like, "Can you look up who owns this house or like any other information?" And I was like, I could not grasp like what was happening. I'm like, I'm like looking. I'm like, it says this person owns it, but it was something weird as well, where they had put it on the market for rent, like with 2 or 3 different agents within a few months, which is odd already. And then they took it off. So like at the time that the call came in from those ladies, it was not actively listed for rent. Yeah. Like it had gotten taken off the market. So I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, I don't know.
But,
weird house.
Or what would have happened if the lady went by herself.
I should go record it.
The house?
Yeah. You still have the address?
Nope.
It'd be a good video. I'm sure they want to see it.
This is not a true crime podcast.
It should be.
Well, then you have to do that with somebody else. This is not for the faint at heart.
Vanessa's
Ro can do it with you. She'll love it.
She's a scaredy cat.
I am. It's good to be scared. If you're always scared of everything, nothing will happen because you always think everybody's trying to. Anyway, what other? The grow house one. Remember when the guy came with his face burnt off?
Oh yeah.
So this is like a twofold story. First of all, I was showing this older couple houses. And one of them, it was wintertime. And we're walking around and she's like holding on to me. And all of a sudden I feel like a tug. And I go down on the floor. And so does she. So like she was slipping and falling. And she took me down with her. Because, I'm also like a giraffe. Like, and then she gets up and she's like screaming, and her finger is like completely bent back. Oof. And then she had like a hard time breathing. I thought she was gonna die, to be honest. But she was just embarrassed. They took her to the hospital. They did not buy that house, but that same couple bought a house out east on acreage, and it was like a modular home. It was nice. Like they had done some work to it. And then it had a 1-car garage and then another like detached 2-car garage. And in the listing description, it said like newly rebuilt. And I'm like, that's weird. It didn't say newly built. It said rebuilt. Like what happened? No. So we look at the property. The 1-car garage has rings on the floor. So that usually means they were growing weed. And on the inside, like there's certain things that I like for insulation and then for the lighting to put like light on the plants and whatever. So I'm thinking, well, I'm really not thinking. I'm just thinking the 1-car garage they grew weed in, and the 2-car garage like something happened. I don't know, but like it got rebuilt. It was brand new. Nothing was in there. So they like the house. They make an offer. They get the house. We go through. Closing happens. Whatever. They call me and they're like, hey, so did I find out during that process about I don't remember.
The explosion? No, I found out. I remember in the academy.
Okay, so they're getting weird mail, but they're not thinking anything of it. They just take it to the post office. I was like, look, I tried to get a hold of it. So the lady that owned it before was renting it to someone, and she had no idea how to get a hold of them. They just like skipped town and never like showed their faces again. That's why she sold it. So I was like, just take it back to the post office. Well, one day they call me freaked out. Some guy comes to their door with this whole like right side of his face burnt off, and he's holding like a rag over his face so that like you can't really see it, but you could still see. And he's like, just asking them if there's mail there. So then come to find out, when Ricky was in the police academy, you guys were told about some story.
When we're in the academy, we had our narcotics team. So we have all these units come and kind of give a class at some point or another. And our narcotics team came to give a class about marijuana and like what the laws are on marijuana, how much people can have, how much people can grow. And they started talking about this house, and it was like, started giving like description of it, like the 1-car garage, the 2-car garage, and like how the location of it was and stuff. And I was like, I look at my friend, I was like, I think my wife sold that. And then he's like, for real? I was like, yeah. And then they start, they're still talking about the house, and then they start talking about like marijuana oils and like dabs and stuff and how they make it. And I had no idea how they made it until then. But I guess they use like gas, like butane gas, and basically like suck all the oil out of the plant. And they like explain this whole process, and they're like, it's very volatile, like it can cause explosions. This house actually exploded. The owner and the dude that was growing the house was in there. Like,
the garage exploded,
yeah. He's like, had severe burns to his face and like half his body. And I was like, oh, my wife definitely sold that house. So I'm like texting my wife, and I'm like, hey, text me the address of that house. And then I like confirmed with the narcotics team. I was like, hey, was it this house? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, my wife actually just sold that to some of her clients.
So we knew in the disclosure it said there was a fire. Yeah. So we're like, oh, Gary, he was the buyer. He's like, oh, it's probably like electrical or something, like somebody doctored something up. We were not told. It was not disclosed that it was like they were, and it wasn't legal either.
No.
They were probably cartel, no?
I don't know about all that.
In my head.
But so in Colorado, you can have 12 plants, 6 flowering, 6 non-flowering. And you can grow in your house for personal use. And doesn't matter how many people you have in your house. And this guy was growing a lot more than that.
Well, it was several people, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the garage blew up. That's why it was rebuilt.
Yeah.
And the guy, they're probably looking for him, no? That came to the house with the burnt face.
No, he was in the hospital for his injuries.
Oh, they could have found him, huh?
I'm sure they got him.
So.
Vanessa has a detective hat on right now.
I do. Should have seen me on my ride along with my detective vest.
You're such a nerd.
Anyway. So I think that's enough. We're all storied out today.
Yeah, we'll give you some more stories next time.
Yeah. If you have any cool stories you want to share with us from either life, something crazy that happened at your job, we love to hear stories. So
I love telling them too. So
I'm not good at telling them. I just ramble.
Yeah, we heard the first 10 minutes. So thank you very much for listening, watching, however you're enjoying our content. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one.